The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everyone. It's that time of the week, and we welcome you back to another wonderful episode of Soccer to the Max. I am the squid himself, Erik Watkins, alongside my faithful co-host, Rachel McKriger.
Hello.
And I'm sure as you've heard this refrain, if you listen to my podcast, we're running a soldier down this week is our awesome producer, Sean. He's got some other commitments with this fine network, especially regarding Wrestlemania. So, yeah, you will have my own dulcet tones along with Rachel here. Just the two of us tonight.
Just the two of us. Yeah, now you got me thinking of that song, Erik.
You're welcome. I think, what is that? There was like an earworm. That's the term for that. It's an earworm. So alas, we have a few topics to go over on this episode, and we are going to start with MLS Match Day 4, Part 2, The Reckoning.
That's a good way to describe it, honestly.
Oh yeah. And, it started out Friday night with two matches, Toronto versus Sporting Kansas City, and the defending champs, the Sounders, against painfully short Atlanta United, especially on the attack. And what better way to celebrate a Friday night than 180 minutes of scoreless football?
I mean, I'm underage, so I'm not going to say what else I could have been doing. But I will give it to the Sounders for their 0-0. Honestly, I would call it a victory for them because with how Atlanta United has been looking, I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous about the match. Then again, I also said I was nervous about the USA versus Honduras match, and we all know how that ended out. Thank you, Clint Dempsey, for leading the attack. But the Sounders, honestly, I think if you're looking at it from a disciplinary aspect, they did better than Atlanta. Atlanta had 2 yellow cards handed to Julian Gressel and Yamil Assad. Sounders didn't have any cards handed out. Thankfully, there were no red cards in the match, unlike some on Saturday, but we'll be getting to that. I mean, both teams had a lot of good attacking opportunities. It's just that the goalkeepers were better, especially from Seattle, because their goalkeeper, Stephen Fry, had 3 really killer saves.
Now, I have to give Atlanta credit. Biggest test of their young season and their young MLS franchise history, and especially losing your top goal scorer, who's just been a house on fire the first 3 matches, but you were still able to do a little bit more beyond piecemealing an attack, and very much kudos to them. And as you said, Fry, God, those saves, I mean, I had no words for those.
That's just what he do, man.
And also giving a little bit more credit for having Almiron on the bench instead of starting him to add just a little more depth. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't translate to anything on the scoreboard, but now if I'm some of the other teams, I'm thinking even more how they're going to handle these next few weeks.
If we're looking at both Seattle and Atlanta?
Well, a little bit Atlanta because how they started in their attack. Record pace for number of goals, blowing everybody out, and now they have their main guy out, but they were able to play it to where they are still setting up a bit of a threat.
Well, yeah, and that's their depth, too, because, unlike a little team up north, there was a lot better recruiting, I guess, for lack of a better term, when it came to the MLS expansion.
Yeah, I have to agree. And as you said, kudos for Seattle. I mean, they've had some pretty good matches themselves this season, but they've had the extra pressure of coming in as defending MLS Cup champs. How do you see with Seattle how they're playing this going forward more from a defensive standpoint?
I mean, I think the bulk of their defense relies on their goalkeeper. Stefan Frei has been their, I know when you look at Bayern Munich's Twitter, they always have a hashtag called Neuer the Wall, in reference to Manuel Neuer. Well, I mean, it's Frei the Wall. I mean, that's how they got to the MLS Cup last season, and quite frankly, that might just be how they get to the MLS Cup again.
Well, I'm going to see, because, yeah, already the way that the West is shaping up, it's early, but I can't see too many arguments. Now, going to Saturday, and I gotta get something off of my chest immediately. Real Salt Lake.
Whew.
That, I'm sorry. Swapping your kits with Minnesota United is the biggest, cruelest, most disrespectful April Fool's joke you could have ever planned.
Sorry.
That's the only way that I am accepting this match. I mean, if I said during our midweek preview for RSL to have any respect, especially after firing their coach, all this promotion, and all of this hullabaloo this early in the season with Minnesota, who's been playing like crap, you need to win this match at least 2-0 to have any sort of respect. And you lose. Horribly. Your defending was like Swiss cheese.
And saying that they suck isn't even like a for lack of better term. That's just saying the obvious. I mean, they really have proven. And honestly, if Minnesota fans, I hate to crush your spirit, but if you're saying this is such a big game, we really redeemed ourselves, not quite. I mean, Real Salt Lake is dealing with a lot of hiccups right now with the head coaching change. Keep in mind that this is the match that, their interim head coach was still coaching. Mike Petke, I'm probably saying it wrong, but he's the head coach of the Real Monarchs, their USL side. He isn't going to coach his first match until after this match. The next match is the one that he does.
Oh.
And to those saying that Nick Raimondo needs to be taken out of net, you're nuts. You're nuts.
No, I mean, yes, there was a little bit of slipping and sliding, but I can't say all of those goals were Raimondo's fault. Again, you and I could have stepped on the pitch against that back four and had a field day.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, especially with me. Now, granted, I would be flailing around the place to try to draw some penalties, but that's just my style. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Amen.
And going on to some of these, yeah, Chicago, I was wrong. I was very wrong. A certain signee.
I want to say something about the certain signing. I hate myself because I bought his shirt. I don't know why. I'm not even a Chicago Fire fan, but I bought a Bastian Schweinsteiger shirt, and I hate myself for it.
Why do you hate yourself?
Because I didn't need to buy it.
Well, I kind of beg to differ. He scored on a wonderful header and said, he was just a terror, setting up some good passes in the midfield, great in transition, and really led that team to the 2-2 draw. I mean, if anybody in Chicagoland still wants to hire me for some local commercials after that performance, I'm in. I've got ideas.
I think they really should hit you up because his ideas are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, in a local deep dish pizza place, especially, you can show highlights of that goal, do something where you're heading a ball of pizza dough through somewhere. I mean, come on. It's starting to write itself, people. But from the good, I have to say, there was one team that I expected to break my heart over the weekend, and they did. But surprisingly, another team redeemed themselves. I mean, I had Columbus beating Orlando City. I did. They did. I had it at 3-1. It was 2-0, so I wasn't terribly disappointed, especially the fact that City, for good chunks of that match, really held their own. But DC United, where did you come from? Where was this at the beginning of the season? How did you pull this off?
Baby steps. That's what they did. They wanted to keep you waiting for more.
Yeah, but, I mean, did you have to have me wait this long? I mean, look, teasing is one thing, but certain parts of my anatomy aren't meant to be blue. You kind of overshot that mark.
Inhale and exhale.
Oh, now I'm going to be left with confusion to see what United does next week. I mean, yeah, it was still somewhat ugly, but I saw more discipline. I saw more cleanliness. I saw more emphasis. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is baby steps. Maybe I'm missing something.
I do have a bone to pick, though, with your DC United.
Just the one? Okay.
Where is my boy, Robbie Vincent at? Have we just forgot about him?
Essentially.
No,
I mean,
bringing him back. Bring him back.
I mean, even with the big deal, I would have thought, hey, Sebastian Latou, you used to play for the Union. You would be an integral part in this match. Yet, from what I saw, it was just like, okay. Maybe I missed something, but I don't know. I still think, to me, this could be one of those situations where DC United is going to be intentionally miserable this season to make all the hype about opening their new stadium next season better. Am I wrong about this?
Probably not.
Okay. I mean, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. You know how certain places and certain stadia have some good home cooking for teams?
Yes.
There was 3 pretty good ones to kind of round out the Saturday slate that really teed it up for me, starting with NYCSC. Now, granted, San Jose is pretty kind of but the way that they played in their home matches, notching another home win, I mean, were they just keeping it warm for the Yankees? Were they saying, hey, maybe the Yankees are going to be miserable, we need to get fans to come out to this place for something? What's going on here?
I don't know. Maybe they just... I still think it's the fact that Mixed Discarood's gone.
Well, yeah, because you've got Pirlo, Villa, now McNamara getting into the action in this match. And poor Quakes, I said at the beginning of the season, they need someone else other than Wondolowski to take the pressure off and be more of a force in attack. Still somewhat waiting for that. Yes, it's leading to goals, but I'm still waiting.
Honestly, it's probably not going to happen until Wondolowski is gone.
Yeah, but don't you think San Jose is like, we may want to keep him here and keep him healthy and try to, build, rather than it's just like, hey, you got to score 25 goals for us, otherwise we're going to be in the basement. Sorry. That's not going to be too much motivation for him to really stick around. But capping out the week, two big performances. Houston. 4-1 is 4-1. But doing that against a team that was trying to build up something like the Red Bulls were, wow.
Putting it lightly, wow, or like, wow?
Putting it lightly, wow, but more wow with Torres and his performance.
He's a firecracker. Not like a Granit Xhaka firecracker, my Arsenal friends, who you fear is going to get thrown out of every game. Former Borussia Mönchengladbach guy, I have to pick on him for leaving my squad. But man, Torres, firecracker, man. He's red hot right now. He's given Josef Martinez of Atlanta United a run for his money when it comes to that golden boot already.
Yeah, and especially Martinez is injured. Torres is like, oh, look, I can do this now. Nice. And my one beef, okay, the refs in that match, seeing what I saw, I'm sorry. There were a pretty big couple of missed whistles on both sides.
For sure.
I'd never seen that aggressive slide tackling to the point that people were getting run over.
It was a little bit beyond aggressive.
Yeah, thankfully no one was seriously banged up, although if I'm New York, I worry a bit about Sasha Kljestan because he took the brunt of some pretty big ones and was slow to get up, so hopefully no damage and he won't be looking at missing any time, but yeah, he took some significant knocks.
Yeah, and he's the leader of their team.
Yeah, and especially the leader, you could really tell, and especially because Bradley Wright Phillips, for a guy that they were touting, oh, look at all the goals that he scored, and then all of a sudden he's there and it was, for most parts, poof. If you will, at least we know there are good times on one side of the Hudson River. And finally, the Reign jerseys were out in force in Vancouver. LA, to their credit, they scored early. They scored at the end. But Vancouver literally ran wild in between. That one, I'm honestly a little bit nervous now if I'm Tigres going into that CCL second leg of the semifinal because Vancouver's like, we're at home, we've got a big week, let's go out and let's solidify a few things.
Yeah, and you can just see that David Ousted is getting a lot more comfortable, and he's getting more comfortable with his defense because he didn't have to make any saves. Galaxy, their goalkeeper, Clement Diop, I probably just totally butchered his name. Hopefully I didn't. He started over in place of Brian Rowe. Kind of questionable, maybe. And he had to make 6 saves, but with Vancouver, the defense is getting a lot more comfortable with each other, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I really liked that, not to mention that match more than anything, and I personally like seeing this. Both teams really took shots from distance, and really you were right about that goalkeeping decision, especially on one where he was about 25, 30 yards out from his net and nearly got his ankles broke in. Oh, jeez, that was just a very bad decision. Very bad decision. But it really, MLS, after the international break, they have definitely made up for it, and we'll see now as things develop heading into match day 5. But before that, we hinted a little bit about CCL, CONCACAF Champions League. Second legs are coming up. Now, Dallas, FC Dallas is in a much better position. They had their match against Colorado rescheduled because they were going to have to travel to play Pachuca. Now, they're up 2-1, which is good, but Pachuca has the away goal. Now they're at home. Do you think Dallas can muster enough of a result to send them through to the final?
I want to say yes just because it's the MLS.
Well, the way that they've been playing, and just like with the Mexican teams heading into the first leg, now Dallas has got that advantage because they haven't really played, and they've been able to focus on this one. Personally, I think they can do it. Now, I would like to see a 2-0 win, but I would settle for a 1-0 win. But the thing is, do they have enough in defense to keep a clean sheet that would really be what they need? I'm nervous about that.
Yeah, I don't really know if you can keep a clean sheet over Pachuca.
And I mean, if they don't, can their offense make up for it and at least score 1?
Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's one of those games where you can't really doubt either side too much or give either side too much credit because, two very different teams that don't play against each other too much, it's going to be hard to tell.
Oh, true. I mean, ideally, I would like to see an all-MLS final, and personally, from what I see from Dallas, they can hold up their end of the bargain, and I think Vancouver can stay hot enough and carry this momentum. I think they can get 2 on Tigres at home.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, call me crazy, but I initially predicted an all-Mexican final. I might have to switch that up. I think at least one of these 2 MLS teams are going to get in. Maybe both. And if that happens, and I know MLS was looking towards, with the CONCACAF Champions League and the winner possibly having a berth in the Copa Sudamericana, which would mean tremendous exposure for the league as a whole. So this could finally be that year. Now, fair Rachel, I know you've got a couple of big events coming up with women's national team taking on Russia. Believe me, I wish I was there with vodka.
Man, I wish I was just there in general.
I mean, what are you seeing about this first and foremost?
What am I saying about the match? Or about the two teams?
A little bit of both. Start with the two teams and anything that you would keep your eye on for this match.
Well, for the U.S., I can't really say much about Russia. I haven't really gotten a chance to look at their roster. I think it's going to be eerily similar to what their roster has been for the last couple national team call-ups. But really, for the U.S., they've had a lot of injuries. Tobin Heath's out, which is a huge. I don't really know what else to say. It's not good. And Morgan Bryan's also out. Julie Johnston, now respectively Julie Ertz. Congratulations, her and Zach Ertz. All three of them are out. And now you've got Jill Ellis calling in a bunch of young players. She's calling Sophia Smith. She's in high school. She plays at the same youth club that Mallory Pugh played. Pugh now plays at UCLA as a college athlete. Lynn Williams gets another cap, as well as Casey Short. Amy Rodriguez is back. Megan Rapinoe's back. I'd like to see Christian Press finally start a game. It's always good to see Kelia Ohai back. I want to see her start. She was left off the roster for the She Believes Cup, and not a lot of people were too happy with that. Alex Morgan and Sam Mewis were two that were definitely going to get called in. Megan Klingenberger's back after being out for injury. Allie Krieger's back. I would hope to see her start again. But the big question mark again is back at the goalkeeper position. You've got 2 matches, 3 goalkeepers. So who do you start? It seems that they're still in a little bit of a trial area, although the arrow's pointing towards Alyssa Naher. But Ashlyn Harris still finds a way to creep back up, and Jane Campbell is doing very well in practices, but she hasn't quite been given her shot yet. Key in that Hamilton reference there. Crystal Dunn, she has been on fire in England for Chelsea ladies. And over in Europe, Carly Lloyd obviously doing her thing with Manchester City women, just scoring her first Manchester City goal in her first appearance. Another person from Real, Colorado, which is the club Sophia Smith plays for, the one that Mallory Pugh used to play for. Jalen Howell's coming in. Jalen Howell got her first official call-up. Somebody that also got her first official call-up, which I firmly believe is a little bit later than I would have expected, was a lady by the name of Megan Oyster. She plays for the Boston Breakers. She's a former member of the Washington Spirit. She's a defender, and I mean, thank goodness Jill Ellis finally called her in, or I was about to, go down to, we'll find where Jill Ellis lives and sit her down and say, hey, listen, this kid's pretty good. Bring her in for camp. She was always a starter with the Spirit. She played over during the off season with the Newcastle Jets, so she didn't take over in Australia. She's a workhorse, and she's got traded to the Breakers this season, and I expect nothing but good things from her, and honestly, the Breakers in general. That's another story for another time than when we talk more NWSL. But it's about time that Megan Oyster gets called into camp. I would love to see her and Becky Sauerbrunn as a nice center back option with Julie Johnston Ertz out, not on the roster. I'd like to see those two as the center backs. I'd like to see Krieger back at right back, and I would like to see maybe even Klingenberg at left back. I don't like the decision to put Allie Long as a center back, which is what they did in their last last round of matches. She's a midfielder. That's where she belongs. She's a good central or defensive midfielder, and that's where Jill Ellis needs to play her, because that's where Portland's playing her. But when it comes to the match, I guess the thing that I have to say about that is, I'm Russian, so there's a lot of talk about, in politics, there's all this tension with Russia and everything. So I'm just sending out a little PSA to everyone watching the match, all of the Twitter trolls, all of the people that are going to be in Houston and in Dallas in the match. Well, I should say Frisco, because it is in Frisco, even though it's where FC Dallas plays. Anyway, my little PSA is just take politics out of it, take personal beliefs out of it. It's football. Let them play football. Don't heckle the Russian players. That's not what they deserve. They're here for a reason. They're here to compete. They've been brought in to compete, and they're doing a very, very great thing by coming here to America and playing this match. It's great exposure for them to get football more popular in Russia, and it's exposure here in America to show that even though there's a bit of conflict, that these two sides can still get together, compete for 90 minutes, and do it respectfully. That's what the USA did with Mexico in November when it was USA World Cup qualifying, the men's team. Now it's time for fans of the women's team to do the same thing. Take your personal opinion out. It's football. Let them play their game. Be respectful. Don't go after the Russians in a disrespectful manner.
Now, and I'm kind of glad that you brought that up, not just from the technical standpoint that you had mentioned at the beginning with the U.S. women's team and their injuries. You mentioned kind of the political tensions, and you referenced USA-Mexico in November, and going all the way back to really the infamous or famous, depending on what side you were rooting for, the Hand of God match, Argentina versus England in World Cup '86. That was just a few years removed from the big Falkland Islands War. So, do you think, I know the Russian fans will be in attendance, and I hope for their sake that they have a sizable visiting crowd. But do you think with the U.S. fans, and especially where the match is being played right in the middle of Texas and Frisco, do you think they'll be able to put that aside for the 90 minutes? Because I'm with you. I hope so.
I don't like that it's in Frisco. I really don't. Houston, I don't have a problem with. Houston's a bigger city. Frisco's not that big. I mean, cities, if we're getting into tactical, cities are very diverse, very multicultural, and Frisco's not, I guess so to say. It's not as, like Houston will be. A Pittsburgh would be, which I wish the game would have been, because I would have loved to cheer on both teams. I just think that when it comes to the 90 minutes and even beyond, it's definitely going to take a lot of swallowing from the American fans to swallow their obnoxious pride, if they have it, and just be able to coincide with Russian fans for a while. I agree. I was down there to be a part of that big crowd, but still in college, can't quite do that. If they would have been in Pittsburgh or school near Pittsburgh, I would have skipped school. I would have been there in a heartbeat. It stinks that I can't, but just remember that it's the same thing as if we were playing Australia, as if you were playing, seeing Australian fans or Canadian fans or England fans, German fans, all that fun stuff. There is a certain level of respect, especially in football. They've been preaching that like crazy with Champions League and all that stuff.
Champions League, so saying no and ending 90-minute racists, as they call them. Even now, MLS, don't cross that line. I'm liking these campaigns, and I'm, again, in a total agreement with you. This is a football match. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing about it, too, is you got to look at it as it's a friendly. So, first off, be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And second off, it's a friendly. So, Russia could have said no, and there couldn't have even been a match. Like, those fans might not have been able to go to a match had Russia said no, and maybe they couldn't find somebody. So they have to keep that in account and, respect the fact that they made a very long trip. I made that flight, too. I might have only been 3 years old, but I made that. It's a long flight, and they're here to compete, win or lose. There's got to be respect on both sides.
Well, hopefully we'll see. And while I am looking forward to a good match, especially as the U.S. women's national team really continues on something of a rebound, given recent form in the past few months, I'm hoping that this will not only be a good catalyst for maybe improving U.S.-Russia relations, but also maybe saying, well, we also need to provide some better atmospheres and locations for the women's national team like we do with the men's. So there are a lot of potential storylines that could really breed from this match. And saving, arguably, the best for closer to the last here on this week's episode, I know you touched on the NWSL during your analysis, and with that, the league schedule has officially been released. It will start mid-April, right before tax day, and looking over the schedule overall, I see the majority Saturday, Sunday games, which is a big plus. Very few Tuesday, Wednesday matches, and I actually kind of enjoy the fact that they're stepping up and having a 24-game schedule, especially with the new TV deal. Now, granted, there's still only 8 teams, but 10 teams now, excuse me. Forgot with these latest expansion, and I'm reading this a bit wrong, but I'm digging that. I think that especially going along with the size and length of other schedules in other women's leagues, especially the more developed ones in Europe, yeah, I think this works.
Yeah, I love the schedule. Like, the thing with the NWSL and, the argument of, well, they don't get the funding, they don't get this and this and this, it's because they haven't gotten exposure. They haven't been on TV much unless it's the playoffs. They don't get the same, the MLS, you have to give a hand to the MLS for definitely reaching out and working with the teams, sharing websites and stuff. I know the Portland Timbers share a website with the Portland Thorns. I know the same thing goes for Orlando City SC and the Orlando Pride. I believe there's another team too, but I can't think of it off the top of my head that share a website together. Oh, the North Carolina Courage now share a website with the North Carolina FC of the NASL. Even the NASL is helping out a lot. But what they needed was to be on TV, and they needed, like, they're not going to get as many games as the MLS right away. That's a fair assumption. But if you go, and I'm going to bring my very improper, I guess, analysis to it. You go on Tumblr and all these other sites. There are so many fan blogs and whatnot about these players. They have a huge following. These clubs have huge followings on Twitter. They get talked about on Twitter. The NWSL draft got talked about a lot this year, which was great. And it was available on YouTube. But YouTube was the only place that you could see the games. Sometimes not everybody has access to that, and sometimes, YouTube has glitches, just like everything else. What they needed to be was on TV, and now they're on TV, which is great. Portland Thorns and North Carolina Courage have a huge chunk of the viewing schedule, which Smart. I can understand. They're very popular teams. They've got And what draws a lot of people to the the NWSL is the U.S. women's national team players. There are a bunch of U.S. women's national team players that play for the Portland Thorns. You've got Allie Long, Tobin Heath, Megan Klingenberg, Lindsey Horan. I forgot to add that too with the U.S. national team coverage. Horan is injured as well. There is a lot of national team players that star for the Thorns, and that draws a lot of people. The Pride are a very popular team because they have they have Alex Morgan, Allie Krieger, Ashlyn Harris, but then there's also the big international players that play too. You've got Andressa Alves and a lot of Brazilian players that are in the NWSL. You've got Christine Sinclair. You've got a lot of Canadian players. National team players really draw people to the NWSL, and that really helps with their viewing rates. So the fact that they have the Thorns and the North Carolina Courage, who technically the North Carolina Courage, I guess you could say they're the reigning NWSL champs. It was the Western New York Flash, but as we know, they moved down to North Carolina. They had sold and everything. It's a business, folks. But they're the two most popular teams right now, so giving them the most coverage is probably the best ideal. And I think and a lot of the Houston Dash, so what's really interesting is a lot of the Pride, a lot of the Houston Dash, a lot of their matches that are on TV are when Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan are expected to come back from their international clubs. They're on turn. They have options for the second half of the season. You know, Lloyd's a big question mark for if she's going to come back, but I'm pretty sure Alex Morgan will definitely be coming back. But a lot of the Pride, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 matches that Alex Morgan should be featuring in. That's really smart from Lifetime TV and from the NWSL to plan it that way. It's really smart for them to put a lot of Chicago Red Stars games ahead of that time, because that's when you'll see the Christian Press, the Alyssa Naher. That's a smart thing to do to spread out Sky Blue FC and the Boston Breakers. I think the Boston Breakers should be getting more airtime than they are getting, but then again, they haven't done well in recent years, so that's probably what they're basing it off of. Things might change this year, what with the new players, the draft and everything, but on this list I only see them once. And that should change. I don't think a team should only be on the list more than once. But if it happens, it happens. FC Kansas City isn't on here a whole lot either, which is shocking because they have a lot of popular players like Sydney Leroux, Amy Rodriguez, Becky Sauerbrunn, Shea Groom. They have a lot of really popular players at national team level and domestic level. But overall, it's a very good schedule when you look at the popularity of teams, the popularity of players. It'd be nice to see them sprinkle it around more. But for their first year being on TV, their first year, by the way, they're having a pregame show every time, which is a huge step up. They never had that when they did YouTube. Having that opens the door to so many things, and I think for a first schedule for TV, I think it's a very good schedule. I would probably give it a 9 out of 10 for a first year schedule.
Yeah, and overall, I would actually bump it up to really a 9.5 for that reason, because you're trying to give every team just a little bit of exposure outside of the local market to the national market. And again, as you said, if teams like FC Kansas City, Boston Breakers, if they have much better performances on the pitch this season, well, then that's clearly going to change. As TV schedules are notoriously if you're a fantastic team one year, well, the next year you're going to be on television a lot, which is great. And what I also like about with Lifetime structure, as you said, playing to the big names, playing to the stars when they're expected to be back with the ratings draw, but with the pregame show, letting everyone know, hey, not just halftime highlights, This is what's going on. 30 minutes, you can provide a lot of good storylines. And I'm confident with this because with Lifetime, they can even get better. This reminds me, and I've said this before, going back to when Lifetime and NBC both partnered in the early days of the WNBA. I knew I would always be able to tune into one of those two networks, follow along, and really get my feet wet for understanding the league. And then, as they went on to the next year, they were very adaptable, made tweaks, fit even better with the partnership. Exposure was tremendous, and now look at where the WNBA is today. With the NWSL, I see the same thing. Lifetime, first year, trying out something relatively new for them, getting back into the sports arena for so long, revamping themselves as a network and saying, okay, let's do this to draw eyeballs at the beginning of a living, breathing process. They have the digital side, they have YouTube, the NWSL media app, live streams, fantastic, and this gives that extra mode, knowing TV is going to support all this. So I'm honestly looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be catching a few Orlando Pride matches. That's just me. Support the girls. That's what I do. But I believe we're just about ready to blow the full-time whistle on this episode. It's definitely a lot of burgeoning as April. It's the one under the hotbed months, not just weather-wise, but for football all around. So, I don't know about you, Rachel. I'm definitely buckling in because it's going to be a very crazy ride from here on out.
No doubt about that.
Well, as we close, I will remind everyone I am indeed the Squid. You can follow me on Twitter at SquidSportsHead. Catch up on all of our other shows and my possible unintentional beef with a professional athlete. If you want to know the genesis for that, tune into This Week in the AFL. Follow that on Twitter. You also hear me weekly on Foxy and Squid. Still in the middle of the hunt to try to get Foxy back on the show, but alas, that for another story for another day. There's few ventures going on. I'm getting excited. Now, Rachel, I noticed a Twitter handle change.
It's just my regular name. I'm so bland and boring. But I decided after 6 years to rest in peace to the McKriger. And so it's just Rachel McKriger now. And it's spelled Rachael, folks, not that EL stuff.
Trust me, I made that mistake once, and thankfully I got off easy, but I'm still not making it again. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I still love you, though. Don't worry.
Aww. But alas, that's it for the two of us. And last but not least, I'm not forgetting our awesome producer, Sean, who, without him and the greatness that is the W2M network, we really wouldn't be here right now. So you can catch the network for all of the great podcasts, stories, columns, whatever your heart's desire at W2MNetwork.com and at W2Mnet. And if you want to seek him out personally and congratulate him on winning our March Madness pool, which I anticipated that I would do horrible in anyways, that's beside the point. You can send him your well wishes and congratulations at W2M Sean.
Kudos, Sean. Kudos.
Yeah, that's just, thankfully he won it, so it's more tolerable, and I ain't mad. But aside from that, Eric Watkins, Rachel McKriger, Sean Garner, and yeah, they're telling us to get up on out of here.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.